It's not a myth. It's real. I saw it. It looked at me. Dr. Rivera's chasing ghosts. There are no gorillas in that region. It's superstition. There's no peer-reviewed evidence. Her footage is inconclusive. She's risking her credibility. I know what I saw. I don't need them to believe me. Not yet. Did you hear that? It's here again. It's watching us. Dr. Ellie Rivera, a passionate young primatologist, had dedicated her life to proving the existence of the legendary ghost gorilla. It was said to haunt the deepest parts of the Congo Basin, a creature so elusive it had become more myth than reality. But Ellie wasn't deterred. For her, this wasn't just a career. It was a calling. She'd spent years in the jungle, gathering evidence, studying maps, and working tirelessly to uncover the truth. But the scientific community wasn't kind. Her work was often dismissed as fantasy. Fellow researchers called her obsession unhealthy, and her theories labeled as naive. They said there was no place for fairy tales in the world of science. Still, Ellie pressed on. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was out there, waiting to be discovered. And then, one day, the university sent her an ultimatum. They'd been patient, but there was no more funding. She was given one last chance. Either bring them solid proof, or her project would be shut down forever. That night, Ellie made a decision. She would go deeper into the jungle than anyone had before, beyond the places where even the locals dared not venture. With a small crew of reluctant locals and one brave cameraman, Ellie set off into the wilderness. Every step felt like a gamble. The crew complained about the dangers, the threats of snakes, insects, and the constant oppressive humidity. But Ellie didn't care. This was her chance. Her only chance. The jungle was thick, and the path was nearly impossible to follow. Ellie relied on old maps, local guides, and her gut instinct. Along the way, strange things began to happen. The trees, once standing tall and proud, were bent and broken as though something massive had passed through. The air felt heavy, and every rustle in the bushes made the team jump. It wasn't long before Ellie found something she couldn't explain. Huge footprints, too large to belong to any known animal. They were fresh. She knelt down to examine them, heart pounding in her chest. The rest of the crew was nervous, but Ellie felt a strange sense of calm. This was it. This was the proof she'd been looking for. Her hands trembled as she recorded the prints, and the cameraman caught her excitement on film. But the further they ventured, the more the jungle seemed to close in around them. The deeper they went, the harder it became to ignore the feeling of being watched. Every snap of a twig, every rustle in the trees, made their hearts race. The crew was beginning to crack. The air felt oppressive, and the jungle was alive with strange noises. Ellie pushed forward, her determination unwavering. But it was clear the team's morale was sinking. One by one, they started questioning the mission, even suggesting they turn back before it was too late. But Ellie refused. She knew they were close. The team was exhausted, and the jungle showed no signs of letting up. The oppressive humidity seemed to soak through their clothes, and the air was thick with the scent of wet earth and rotting leaves. Ellie's eyes were bloodshot, but her determination never wavered. She had to keep moving forward, no matter the cost. As the days dragged on, tensions within the group began to rise. The crew, once eager to be part of her groundbreaking research, now questioned the mission. One by one, they began to voice their doubts. The local guides were the first to leave, muttering about the cursed nature of the region. Their voices were filled with fear, but Ellie brushed it off. She had come too far to turn back now. Ellie's cameraman, Carlos, who had been with her from the start, was the next to hesitate. He had seen the strange footprints, the broken branches, and the signs of something large moving through the jungle. But each night, when they gathered around the fire to talk, he was more and more convinced that they were chasing shadows. "Ellie, this is crazy," he said one evening as the group huddled around a campfire. "We're in the middle of nowhere. The locals are scared for a reason. Maybe we should just—" "No," Ellie cut him off sharply. her voice steady but firm. "We're close. I know it." Carlos exhaled sharply, running his hand through his hair. "Ellie, you're risking everything for something that might not even exist. We can't keep going like this." But Ellie's mind was made up. She couldn't walk away now, not when she was so close to finding something that had been hidden from the world for centuries. The next morning, they set out once again, deeper into the jungle. It was quiet, eerily so, with none of the usual chatter of wildlife. The only sounds were the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of a bird. It felt wrong, like the jungle itself was holding its breath. Then they found it. A series of enormous broken trees, their trunks splintered as if something had brushed past them with tremendous force. Ellie's heart raced. She approached cautiously, eyes scanning every inch of the surroundings. "Do you see that?" she whispered, pointing to something far off in the distance. The team squinted through the trees, but all they saw were shadows. Ellie felt her pulse quicken. It was there. Something was moving. The shape was massive, but the dense foliage made it impossible to make out any details. Before anyone could react, a deep, low growl vibrated through the ground, a sound that made their bones rattle. The growl was so loud, so primal, that it froze them in place. The cameraman caught it on film, his hands trembling, but Ellie couldn't tear her eyes away from the spot where the shadow had disappeared. For a moment, time seemed to stop. They were no longer just explorers or researchers. They were witnesses. And then, the moment passed. The sound of the growl faded, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. "This isn't a dream," Ellie whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's real." Ellie's heart raced as she hurriedly reviewed the footage from that morning. The growl was undeniable, deep and chilling. But the figure, the shadow she had seen, was still too obscured to confirm anything. She replayed the video again, watching the blurry shape move in the distance, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Back at camp, the team was silent. The energy had shifted. Carlos was pacing, muttering under his breath. One of the local guides, who had returned after refusing to go further the day before, was staring into the jungle, his face pale. "I'm telling you," Carlos said, his voice laced with doubt. "It's all just shadows and tricks. We're too far in. The jungle's playing with us." Ellie turned to him sharply. "No. What we heard, what we saw, that wasn't a trick. I've been in the jungle too long to mistake that for anything else." Despite her conviction, the team wasn't buying it. They were tired, afraid, and most of all, they were skeptical. The video footage, though compelling, was still far too unclear. No one could see the creature clearly enough to make any definitive statements. Ellie sent the footage to her university contact, hoping that the experts might see something that she missed. A day later, the response came back. It was a crushing blow. "Sorry, Dr. Rivera, but this footage is inconclusive. The shadow appears to be an artifact from poor lighting. I'm afraid we can't endorse your findings." The email continued with a list of suggestions for further refinement and a polite reminder that the project had been under review for quite some time. Ellie read the message several times, each line feeling like a jab to her gut. They didn't believe her. She sat there, staring at the screen, willing herself not to cry. She had risked everything for this, her career, her reputation, her own safety. And yet, in the eyes of the academic world, it was all for nothing. It wasn't just the university that had turned their back on her. The media, which had once shown interest in her findings, now mocked her. News outlets ran stories like "Primatologist chasing Bigfoot-like creature in Congo Basin" and "The Ghost Gorilla Myth," a cautionary tale of science gone wrong. Her name was becoming a punchline. Frustration boiled inside her, but she couldn't quit. Not now. Not after everything she had witnessed. She gathered the crew for a meeting, their faces filled with exhaustion and uncertainty. "We've come too far to turn back now," Ellie said, her voice steady, but with an edge of desperation. We've seen things, heard things, that no one can explain. If we leave now, we'll never know the truth." One by one, the crew spoke up, their doubts weighing heavily in the air. The cameraman, Carlos, was the most vocal. "Ellie," he said, his voice quieter now, "you've got to accept it. This could be nothing. You're fighting a losing battle and we're all going to pay the price." Ellie stood up, her eyes fierce. "I don't care what the world says. I know what I've seen and I won't stop until I've proved it. We're staying." There was a long pause. The crew exchanged uncertain glances, but none of them spoke up again. They had no choice but to follow Ellie deeper into the jungle, even if they didn't believe in the mission anymore. As they trekked through the thick undergrowth, Ellie couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. Something enormous, hidden just out of sight. She wasn't sure if it was the exhaustion playing tricks on her or something more, but her gut told her they were close. Every snap of a branch, every rustle in the bushes made her heart skip a beat. The jungle felt alive with tension, as though it was waiting for something to happen. And then, just as she was about to call for a break, it happened. A massive form, too large to be any known animal, moved between the trees, its shape barely visible through the dense foliage. Ellie's breath caught in her throat. She motioned for the crew to stay still, to be quiet. Slowly, she raised her camera. She could see it now. It was there. The creature, the gorilla. But it was moving too fast, too quietly. Ellie barely had time to record a single frame before it disappeared back into the jungle, leaving nothing but broken branches and an eerie silence in its wake. It was real. And now, there was proof. But would anyone believe it? That night, Ellie couldn't sleep. She sat by the fire, her eyes scanning the footage she had managed to capture, a fleeting glimpse of the massive creature moving through the jungle. She'd seen it with her own eyes, but the footage was shaky, and the creature's form was indistinct. Still, it was the clearest shot she'd gotten yet. The growl from earlier echoed in her mind, deep and reverberating, like it had come from the very earth beneath her feet. Her hand trembled as she rewound the video again, watching the brief moment where the creature had appeared, its hulking shape barely visible through the trees. Ellie's pulse raced as she tried to steady the camera on the screen. This was it. This was the proof she needed. She had to get the footage out there, even if it wasn't perfect. She couldn't afford to wait any longer. The next morning, she made the decision to release the footage. Her heart was pounding as she uploaded it to a secure server, preparing a message for the scientific community. She'd spent hours writing, explaining everything she'd experienced, detailing the evidence she had collected, and the nature of the creature she had seen. There was no turning back now. She hit send. But the response she got wasn't what she'd hoped for. Instead of awe and excitement, the scientific community responded with skepticism and dismissal. Emails flooded in, all echoing the same sentiment. This is inconclusive. This could be anything. It's a trick of the light. One email in particular stood out. It was from a renowned primatologist, a mentor who had once supported her research. His words were sharp and cutting. "Ellie, this is not the breakthrough we've been waiting for. The footage doesn't provide any real evidence, and I suggest you reconsider this approach before it tarnishes your career. I'm sorry, but this is a dead end." The blow was harder than Ellie had expected. She stared at the screen, the words searing into her brain. How could they not see it? How could they not understand? She had risked everything, her career, her reputation, her safety. And yet, they still didn't believe her. Her crew was starting to fracture. Tension was thick in the air. Carlos, who had been her closest ally, began to withdraw, his doubts growing more pronounced. "Ellie," he said one evening, voice tight with frustration, "maybe you're chasing something that doesn't exist. We've all seen the signs, but this isn't enough." Ellie didn't know how to answer him. The doubt was creeping in, even for her. But deep down, she knew what she had seen, what they had all heard. The moment they encountered the growl again, louder and more intense than before, was proof enough for her. Something was out there, something massive, and it wasn't going to be ignored. The next day, as Ellie sat by the fire, reading the harsh feedback from the scientific community, the air around her grew still. She looked up, her instincts telling her that something wasn't right. There were no sounds, no birds, no rustling leaves, just the oppressive silence of the jungle. Then a deep, low growl, closer this time, vibrating the ground beneath her feet. Her breath caught in her throat, and she stood up, motioning for the crew to stay still. The growl was unmistakable, and this time it was different. It was louder, more commanding, as if the creature was announcing its presence. Ellie grabbed her camera, her hands shaking. The growl was followed by a series of heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate. Something massive was coming toward them. The crew stood frozen, eyes wide with fear, but Ellie's heart was pounding with a mix of excitement and dread. This was it. The creature was close. She could feel it. She had to capture this moment. Suddenly, through the trees, a massive shadow appeared. It moved with purpose, effortlessly crashing through the underbrush. Ellie snapped a picture, and then another, but the creature was moving too quickly to get a clear shot. For a moment, the creature stopped. The camera caught a glimpse of something large and dark, a hulking silhouette, its features hidden by the dense foliage. Ellie's breath caught in her throat as she realized the enormity of what she was witnessing. The growl echoed once more, closer now, as the creature slowly turned its head toward them. It was watching them. Ellie could feel its eyes on her, though she couldn't see them. The hairs on her neck stood up, a chill running down her spine. And just as quickly as it appeared, the shadow vanished back into the jungle. Silence returned. The crew was in shock. They had all heard it, felt it, but none of them could truly grasp what had just happened. Ellie knew, though, this wasn't a dream. This wasn't a hallucination. The gorilla was real. Ellie couldn't contain the surge of adrenaline that rushed through her as the creature vanished into the jungle. Her hands were still shaking, but she knew what she had just witnessed was beyond anything she had hoped for. This was no hallucination. It was real. The crew, still stunned, slowly began to whisper among themselves. They had all seen it, the enormous shadow moving through the trees, the guttural growl that rattled their bones. Ellie's heart raced as she quickly reviewed the footage on her camera. It wasn't perfect, but there were clear signs of something massive, something that couldn't be ignored. She couldn't wait any longer. There was no time to waste. She had to release the footage to the world. The world had to see it. She wasn't going to let this moment slip away like the others had. Ellie rushed back to camp and immediately connected her camera to her laptop, uploading the footage to the secure server. The world had to know. Ellie typed up a detailed report, explaining everything: the location, the sounds, the shadow, the size. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she included every detail, every piece of evidence that might make people believe her. She wasn't just documenting a discovery, she was fighting for her credibility, her work, and her belief in what she had seen. Once the video was uploaded, Ellie took a deep breath and hit send. The footage, the documentation. It was all out there now. She couldn't take it back. The world would either believe or dismiss her, but there was no going back. The response came faster than she expected. Her inbox flooded with messages. Some were supportive, others were full of doubt. But the message she received from the top primatologists and experts in the field was crushing. Dr. Rivera, this footage is inconclusive. There is nothing in this video that proves the existence of a new species. We suggest you reconsider your approach and wait for peer-reviewed evidence before making such bold claims. Ellie stared at the message, her heart sinking. How could they not see it? How could they dismiss it so easily? She had risked everything to bring the truth to light, and now she was being told it wasn't enough. It wasn't even close to being enough. The media, too, had a field day. Headlines like, "The Ghost Gorilla, a Hoax," or reality? And primatologists' claims draw mockery flooded the internet. Talk show hosts laughed it off. Social media exploded with memes and jokes, mocking her relentless pursuit of the creature that so many had dismissed as fantasy. Ellie's name became a punchline. It was the last thing she had expected. She had hoped for validation, for support from the scientific community, but instead she found ridicule. Back at camp, the tension among the crew was palpable. Carlos, who had once been the most supportive, now seemed distant. He spoke less and less, and the other team members shared nervous glances. The pressure of the ridicule was wearing on them. They had all witnessed something they couldn't explain, but now they weren't sure if they should even be part of this journey anymore. Ellie knew that the only way to prove them wrong was to go back to the heart of the jungle. She needed more evidence. She needed the truth, something that couldn't be ignored. One evening, while the crew was resting by the fire, Ellie stood up, her resolve hardening. "I'm going back," she said quietly, looking around at each of their faces. "This isn't over. Not yet." Carlos shook his head. "Ellie, don't you get it? We've done all we can. This is too dangerous. It's not worth it." Ellie's gaze was unwavering. "It's worth it to me. I know what I saw. I know it's out there, and I'm going to find it. Who's with me?" There was a long silence, but one by one, the crew members reluctantly nodded. They had seen what she had seen. They had heard the growl, and despite their fear, they couldn't ignore what they knew to be true. The next morning, they packed up and set off deeper into the jungle. Ellie felt a mixture of excitement and fear, knowing that whatever was out there, whatever they were going to face, it would be monumental. But she couldn't turn back now. Hours later, as they ventured further into the dense foliage, they heard it again, the growl. This time, it was louder, closer. Ellie's heart pounded. They were near. She motioned for the crew to stay quiet and still, her camera ready. Suddenly, a massive shape moved through the trees, too fast to catch on film. Ellie's pulse quickened. She couldn't lose it now. She had to get the footage. She had to capture the creature before it disappeared again. The shape appeared once more, just at the edge of the clearing. Ellie snapped a photo, and her breath caught in her throat. It was real. The gorilla was real. But as quickly as it had appeared, it was gone again, vanishing into the jungle with barely a sound. The crew stood frozen, unable to speak, as the weight of the moment settled in. Ellie was shaking, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was triumph. She had the proof. Now, there was no doubt. The world would see it, and they would believe. The footage Ellie had captured was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The massive creature, with its hulking frame, appeared in flashes, moving swiftly through the dense jungle. Her heart raced as she reviewed the shots, knowing this was the moment that could change everything. But she also knew it wasn't enough. She needed more, clearer, undeniable proof. She uploaded the new footage, but her nerves were on edge. This time, she didn't write a long explanation. She simply uploaded the raw footage, letting the images speak for themselves. There was no more room for doubt, no more room for skepticism. The world would see the creature and they would have no choice but to believe. The response came swiftly, but this time it wasn't the same. The scientific community was divided. Some still held on to their disbelief, but others were starting to change their tune. Experts who had once ridiculed her began to ask questions. How could this be explained? What species could move like that? What was it? Then came the breakthrough. A prominent primatologist from a major research institution reached out to Ellie directly. They had watched the footage multiple times, and while they couldn't fully explain the creature's identity, they couldn't deny its existence either. "We need to discuss this in person," the email read. "We think it's time to re-examine what we know about the wildlife in that region." Ellie could hardly believe what she was reading. For the first time, someone in the scientific community was open to the possibility of what she had discovered. She immediately arranged a meeting, knowing this was her chance to get the validation she had been fighting for. The meeting was intense, filled with questions and debate. Ellie showed the experts her footage, explained her methodology, and recounted every moment she had spent in the jungle. The scientists were skeptical, but they listened, really listened. And for the first time, Ellie felt like her research wasn't being dismissed out of hand. But the biggest moment came when one of the primatologists asked her the question she had been waiting for. Do you think this creature could be related to a species we've never encountered before? Something that's been hiding in plain sight? Ellie's voice was steady as she answered. Yes, I believe this is a new species. A species we thought was a myth, a ghost of the jungle. But it's real, and we need to protect it. The primatologist nodded slowly, clearly contemplating the implications of her words. The conversation shifted into a more formal discussion about what steps needed to be taken next. They talked about funding for further research, the importance of preserving the habitat, and how to approach the world with such groundbreaking findings. Ellie couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. The battle wasn't over, but it was a significant step in the right direction. The door to legitimacy had finally been opened. The media, too, began to shift. News outlets that had once mocked her now featured interviews with Ellie, discussing the groundbreaking discovery and the implications for primate research. The ridicule was replaced with genuine curiosity. People wanted to know more about the creature, about the gorilla no one had believed existed. Ellie's name was no longer a punchline. It was a symbol of persistence and courage in the face of doubt. The team that had accompanied Ellie on her journey also began to receive recognition for their role in the discovery. They were no longer the skeptical crew, but a part of the groundbreaking expedition. Carlos, though still cautious, started to speak about the creature with a newfound respect. He was no longer just following Ellie's lead. He had seen something real, too. But Ellie knew there was still much work to be done. The creature was out there, but it wasn't just about proving its existence anymore. It was about protecting it, understanding it, and ensuring that it would never again be dismissed as a myth. As Ellie prepared for the next phase of research, she reflected on everything she had sacrificed: the years of doubt, the ridicule, the isolation. She had been right. She had trusted her instincts, followed her gut, and refused to back down. The jungle, with all its mysteries, had finally yielded its secret. And now, Ellie had become part of a story that would change the world forever. But deep in the jungle, somewhere in the shadows, the gorilla watched. And Ellie knew this was only the beginning. The discovery had made headlines around the world. Ellie, once ridiculed, was now hailed as a pioneer in her field. Documentaries were being pitched, interviews were lined up, and the scientific community, which had once dismissed her, was now scrambling to catch up. But Ellie knew the real work was only just beginning. She had proven the creature existed, but she wasn't ready to rest just yet. The mission had always been about more than just proving the existence of a new species. It was about understanding it, protecting it, and ensuring that this discovery wasn't lost to time. Ellie assembled a new team of experts: biologists, ecologists, conservationists, people who could help her understand what she had uncovered. They began planning expeditions back into the jungle, this time with the goal of studying the gorilla's behavior, its habitat, and its interaction with the environment. Ellie was determined to understand this creature fully, to learn its history and place within the ecosystem. The jungle, despite its terrifying mysteries, held the answers. But with newfound attention came new challenges. Governments and corporations saw the discovery as an opportunity, and the once untouched region of the jungle began to face the threat of exploitation. Construction companies eyed the area for development, and poachers saw the gorilla as a valuable prize. Ellie was alarmed, knowing that the creature was incredibly vulnerable. She realized that this wasn't just a scientific mission anymore. It was a race against time to protect the gorilla's home from being destroyed. With her team's help, Ellie launched a campaign to protect the region, working closely with environmental organizations, local governments, and indigenous communities. She fought tirelessly to have the area designated as a protected reserve, arguing that the world had just uncovered one of the most important species of our time, and it needed to be preserved at all costs. It was a long, arduous battle. There were political hurdles, corporate interests pushing back, and constant skepticism from the public. But Ellie never wavered. She kept pushing forward, mobilizing support, and using her newfound platform to speak out for the gorilla and its habitat. Meanwhile, the expeditions continued. Ellie and her team ventured deeper into the jungle than before, slowly gaining the creature's trust. They set up hidden cameras and tracked the gorilla's movements, gathering invaluable data. Ellie had learned that this gorilla, despite its imposing size and power, was an incredibly intelligent animal. It was cautious, elusive, and protective of its territory. It had survived in the shadows for centuries, hidden from the world, and Ellie was determined to learn its secrets. During one of the expeditions, Ellie came face to face with the creature once again. This time, however, it didn't retreat into the jungle. It stood there, just out of reach, watching her. Ellie felt her heart race, not with fear, but with a deep sense of respect. She had spent so long searching for it, and now it was finally acknowledging her. She didn't move, not wanting to startle it, but she knew in that moment that the gorilla recognized her as something other than a threat. The encounter was brief, but it was a pivotal moment. Ellie's camera captured the creature in full, its massive form standing tall against the backdrop of the jungle. There was no mistaking it now. This was a creature unlike any other, and Ellie had finally earned its trust. As Ellie reviewed the footage, she realized that the world now had a chance to see the gorilla in its true light. It wasn't just a myth anymore. It was a living, breathing testament to the resilience of nature, to the untold stories hidden in the world's most remote corners. With the footage, Ellie was able to secure international attention for the creature's protection. Governments began to act, and slowly, the area was designated as a wildlife sanctuary. The creature's home would be safe, and its population, though small, would have a chance to thrive. It was a victory. But Ellie knew it was just the beginning. The real work of studying and preserving the gorilla would take years, possibly decades. Ellie's life had changed forever. She had gone from being a joke to a respected scientist, but it wasn't the fame that drove her. It was the desire to protect the creatures that lived in the world's most remote places, to uncover the secrets of nature that had been hidden for so long. And though the media buzz had died down and the attention had shifted to other stories, Ellie continued her work, returning to the jungle time and time again. The world had seen the gorilla and the world had believed, but Ellie knew that what was truly important was the legacy of conservation she was leaving behind. The jungle wasn't just a place of mystery and danger. It was a sanctuary for a creature that deserved to be protected. As the years passed, Ellie's research became the cornerstone of conservation efforts in the region. The gorilla's discovery led to further explorations into the biodiversity of the area, and new species, previously unknown to science, were uncovered. But Ellie never forgot the moment that had started it all. The first time she had seen the creature in the jungle, and the world had refused to believe her. The gorilla had waited in the shadows for centuries. Now it would be protected for generations to come, and Ellie had made sure of it.